we both had this feeling once we became moms that was like, we can't crank it out, work for the man anymore. Life is too short, life is too big, this world is too precious for us to waste any time doing work that doesn't matter.
Hello, hello. This is Samantha Saxby with another episode of Moms with Benefits. And I am very, very excited to have Dr. Carly Buxton with us. Dr. Carly Buxton is also the CEO of Nessle. She is a postpartum doula, and she is also a certified lactation consultant. So we are going to have an awesome conversation today with Carly. Carly, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I want to just start with the personal side of things. I mean, you have the CEO title, you are a doula, and you have the CLC. But I want to first start with your personal story of motherhood and what were you doing work-wise before kids entered your equation? And what was that transition like back to paid work after you had a child?
I have had an adventurous life and have always had this spirit of wanting to follow my heart with the things that I feel called to do in a given moment. And I'm sure you and I will talk about this in a bit because I know we're going to talk about making money and various ways that I've continued to pull in revenue. But the reason I bring that up is because I was never sure if I wanted children. I was such a free spirit, and I loved being an aunt, to my niece and nephew, and was so thoroughly exhausted after every just half hour that I spent with them. And I kind of thought, I don't know if this is for me. And so my husband and I were married for actually 8 years before we made the decision to explore, the possibility of having children. By that time, I had transitioned from a career in academia as a historian and researcher into the private sector working for a big company in product development. So that's where I was when I had my first child. I had my daughter Rose. It was 2017, and the company was really friendly to parents in terms of parental leave and adjusting responsibilities. And I had 4 months off to deliver my child and to have time with her postpartum. But my memory of that time is just such a awful fog, and it was winter in Boston. We are from Virginia, so we didn't have, we were still relatively new to the area. I didn't know where anything was. I didn't know what providers to get in touch with, didn't have family nearby, didn't have really friends nearby other than those I had met through work. So I just felt so lost during that period. And although it was a generous parental leave, it felt like a blip. And before I knew it, I was, riding the commuter rail back into the city in Boston and trying to figure out how in the world to navigate this really, high number of hours, lots of travel job with the responsibility of having a 4-month-old daughter and being a parent for the very first time. So it was a difficult transition, and that is where the idea for Nestle was originally born, was during that parental leave, just spending so much time trying to get my hands on resources and figure out what I could trust and who could possibly help me. I just decided that it needed to be made easier. And that is when I dove headfirst into this world of birth work, certified as a postpartum doula, certified as a CLC, and began helping families as really a hobby in addition to my work at the educational travel company. And then when we decided to have a second child and move back home to Virginia, which is where we're both from, that's when I made the decision to quit my job at the company and focus on Nestle full time.
And so, for those that may be wondering, quick synopsis of Nestle, and we can get deeper into it later when we talk about the finances, but give some folks the context of what Nestle does and how it's related to your parenthood journey.
Nestle is a parenting co-pilot. So it's an online platform where parents can connect with experts and resources throughout their journey from fertility all the way through parenting a teen or tween. So it's a marketplace that lists experts and companies and nonprofits and essentially all of the wonderful resources that are out there created by people who are, maybe like me and are trying to answer some corner of the problems that parents have. And simply because of the way that search works or that parents share information by word of mouth, there are so many wonderful resources and experts that parents could use as an ideal fit and just be perfectly matched to, but they'll never find that because it's in a different zip code or it's in a different part of the world or their friends have never used it. And so our goal is to pull all of these experts and resources together and recommend them to parents when they need them. So we use AI to make that easy, and parents can simply share a few things about their style or where they're located, what insurance they carry. Really, we use natural language processing, so they just can type a sentence and we will serve them up at least 3 resources or experts that we think are a perfect fit for them to explore in that moment to help them out and chart a path forward.
That sounds incredible, and I can see the value. Of course, I'm trying to tie it back to the comments that I heard from your experience postpartum, and the word isolation came to mind. I'm not sure if that word resonates with you, but it feels like you are another wonderful example of the countless moms I've talked to that have had an experience and were looking for a certain solution to find that it doesn't exist, and then to go even further and be empowered to create that solution for other moms.
I think the isolation is a great way to capture how I felt, and then also overwhelm, And so what Nestle does is it's an antidote to that overwhelm. Rather than the parent having to dive through pages and pages of blogs or books or podcasts or ask a question on Facebook and sort through all of the answers that people toss their way. That was me as a new mom. Rather than having to do that, they just interact with our friendly website and we connect them with human beings or, companies that are ready to welcome them and enfold them in their embrace. So that overwhelm, that endless search that is available to us because the internet is at our fingertips, they can put that behind them and just get into the fold of the village that they need.
Yeah. So I definitely want to go deeper into Nestle and talk about the experience of leaving your former job to follow this new business opportunity with Nestle and this passionate concept of Nestle. And so before we go into that, though, I kind of want to circle back. So you said you were never sure if you wanted to have children. Do you mind sharing with me like how you ended up having children? Was it a proactive choice? Like, talk to me about your transformation mentally through that.
My husband and I were college sweethearts, and he always wanted children. And I always said, I'm just not sure. And we loved each other enough that having that sort of nebulous and undecided when we got married felt okay. Also, we were super young. And so we just sort of punted the decision down the line. But my life was flying around the world. I mean, I've always been a traveler. I've held jobs that required a lot of travel. And I didn't see it as compatible with, what I saw from my brother or my cousins who I thought were really fantastic parents. And they put that first. And I just, until I felt like I was ready to do that and be in that position where parenting could be first and foremost, I didn't feel ready to be a mom. But I got to a point mentally where I did feel that way. I felt like, and it's kind of hard to describe, I can't quite put a finger on why or what changed about it, but it was just, we reached a certain stasis, and I thought the next adventure for me is, the biggest chapter ever, becoming a parent. And so once I felt ready for it, we decided we would start trying to have children and got pregnant relatively quickly and started the wild ride.
And so, for someone who always has been gravitated towards adventure, it sounds like that reframing in your mind of having kids was now the next adventure. It sounds like that was like a transition where, what I hear, it doesn't sound like you had to give up things or feel like you were not able to be yourself in this transition into parenthood. Is that fair to say?
I certainly pitched it that way to myself. I'm not sure it's held true in all honesty. I think it's so hard to be a parent. I mean, this. It is hard to wake up on a Saturday morning, and when I used to be able to dive into books or my journaling or just have the day ahead of me to do the projects that are fulfilling to me, I don't have that now. I have little kids. It is all about what they want, how they're feeling. Is someone sick? Did someone sleep well? And that continues to be hard for me. My kids are now, my daughter's 6.5, my son's about to turn 4. It is hard. And it is an adventure at the same time. It's not mutually exclusive. It just was a reorientation of my life that I'm continuing to get used to.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for the honesty there, because I think it's easy to say that you should just kind of accept this new role. And I don't know if accepting is the right word, but you can accept it, but you can also still struggle with the difference it has made in your life on an everyday
Yeah.
scale. Like it is every day. There are no days off.
Mhm.
um, let's go back into talking about Nessle. And so you had this idea for Nessle, could see how it could benefit the moms of the world. I mean, I can see that. Anybody can see that just hearing about what it does. And so you quit your job in a product development lane, which, from my understanding, product development is an in-demand field with, from my understanding, competitive salaries. And so there's a certain security that will come with that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Definitely. Yeah.
And so you are now making the transition to what some may call a passion project, what some may call a full-fledged business plan. And so talk to me about, like, where did it go from passion to business?
So there was an intermediate stage, which I imagine, maybe several of your listeners have either considered or have been through themselves, which is I did go back to work full time, but after about a year, asked to reduce my hours and to change my role. So I was still at my company. My daughter was about a year old, and I transitioned from the product development role into more of a strategic insights, like talking to customers, work that could be done in Boston, in the United States, as opposed to traveling all around the world and going to meetings in Europe all the time and Asia. And with that, I pulled back from my full time workload to 3 out of 5 days a week. It was like already becoming less money and already becoming less, I don't know, of a key player at the company. It was like it felt perfect, and they really met me where I wanted to be in terms of the hours they gave me and shifting my responsibilities. And there was really, they tried, but I think at that time and still today, it's hard to be a part-time team member and to be thought of as a full-time impact driver of results for the business. I experienced that firsthand, and I see it a lot with clients of mine as well, and with the parents in the Nessle network. I think it's just, as much as I wish we could, because we're moms and we crush it, like we can work 3 days and produce what an average worker could produce in 5 days. It's true, we can make that happen, and yet you're just thought of differently across your team, across your organization. So I had already started pulling back, and then when we decided to move to Virginia, this was pre-pandemic, the company wasn't remote at that time, so that was a decision to get a new job, to focus on something new. And I decided to take a leap with Nessle because I believed so deeply in the need for it, and thought that my background in customer insights and talking to users and product development plus being a postpartum doula and lactation counselor was a good combination for like, if somebody needs to do this, okay, why not me? What I figured out pretty quickly was that there are a lot of people trying to solve this problem or something relatively adjacent. And what Nessle originally was more of a telehealth or telesupport network where parents could, actually book sessions rather than simply find the right fit. They could hold sessions with people. We ran payments. Like a lot of that came through Nessle. And in the years since, I've seen a lot of companies that started with that original dream that are now either they've pivoted to something else like we have, or they just fizzled out. And there's a lot of thinking around, why that is and why we don't put enough priority on spending money for these kinds of services and why they're not better reimbursed with health insurance like they might be in a different country. But I learned that the hard way of riding the roller coaster, managing this startup. But it was something that I was able to do as a passion project, yes, but also it scratched the itch of having a strategic job and career that made me feel really fulfilled and like I was doing something big and important, even if my schedule was not that of a 5 day a week, 8 to 5 worker.
Yeah, the flexibility is something we hear continuously from moms to be able to, I say make it all work in air quotes, but make it all work. So that is super interesting that you felt so passionately that this would, scratch the itch or serve a market that you were willing to invest your time, your energy, your finances into this. And I think that's incredible. I mean, I think so often we are so inspired by our experiences into motherhood that we can see the world differently and we can see how maybe the world can really be better in a lot of ways. And so to be able to harness that and have the courage to go out there and try to get your solution in front of people is just so admirable, and so needed, and just an amazing example of the support that moms can bring other moms.
Yeah, and I agree with you about that perspective shift. I think, when I became a mom, my motto or what I would kind of zoom out and say to myself when I made decisions was do what matters. And it felt like if I was doing what mattered, then I was on the right track. And and I've talked about this with my co-founder, my CTO, Michelle, who is like me, a mom of two. We both had this feeling once we became moms that was like, we can't crank it out and work for the man anymore. Like life is too short. Life is too big. This world is too precious for us to waste any time doing work that doesn't matter.
Yes. And I was just reading an article, I think it was by Forbes, it popped up on Instagram, and that it was about burnout and how if you feel burnout and you are trying to figure out where burnout is coming from, there is a possibility that that burnout is coming from a lack of alignment when it comes to your
Mm,
passion in your work. So that's something to consider as a potential solution, that you may need to incorporate some of that passion. I felt like that resonated with me when I was transitioning back to paid work. I felt like if I'm going to work, if I'm going to not be with my child, if I'm going to work, I'm going
mhm.
to make sure that I'm making a difference, and I want to make meaning, and I want to help
Yeah.
people. Otherwise, I'll just be with my kid 24/7.
Yeah. I think it's important to have a mission and, kind of for your own life or what you see yourself contributing to the world, and then find what is aligned with that. And that could be your own project. That could also be being a teammate at a huge organization, as long as it is something that you're feeling is aligned with who you are and like kind of the person you want to bring to the world each day. And the work setting each day, then I think you're avoiding burnout.
Yeah, and I wonder if, not to get too like philosophical, but I feel like having a child is like it's bigger than all of us, and so it makes us reflect on the
Mhm.
impact that we are bringing to the world. And it's our job for, call it an average of 40 hours a week. That's like a huge chunk of time, energy, resources that you have the opportunity to make the world a better place, I'll say. And
Yeah.
so, yeah. Okay, so let's dive into the finances portion of the equation. So, talk to me about the journey of your income, I'll say, from child number one, child number two, your transition from product developer to CEO of Nessle. Talk to me about the financial impact and the financial factor of your decisions.
So I was a graduate student for so long, and my fellowship paid me $16,000 a year. And so going from that to product development, I felt like I was a millionaire. My job was actually less hours of work per week than what I had worked as a graduate student and paying me so much more. But I had been a graduate student for like what, 7 years. And so I was used to living on an absolute shoestring budget. And from that, and this was still before I had kids, was able to save a good bit of money and feel like I could take the leap with Nestle from just those few years that I had being exposed to like a corporate salary. Um, that said, we still haven't figured out what our pricing strategy is going to be because it's so hugely important for us that we don't think parents should have to pay for this. We think parents should have a friendly oasis on the internet and not have to pay to make that a reality. So we've explored ways that people's employers could pay on their behalf. We've explored charging just the resources, these experts, a listing fee, or the companies, an affiliate fee for us for recommending them. We have explored and are continuing to explore quite a bit. But long story short is that Nestle does not make enough money for us to use right now as our primary income. We've done a great job, I think, with getting non-dilutive funding. So we apply for a lot of grants. We submit to a lot of startup competitions. We pitch everywhere. And because the mission is really resonating with a lot of people, we've gotten a great response. And so we've been able to use the money from various grants and competition wins to bring the business to where it is today, which is over 1,000 customers. But still figuring it out, And I think that we, in the sidelines, my co-founder and I, we continue to work on sometimes adjacent things and sometimes totally divergent things, just so that we can continue to keep this business alive. I am a lactation counselor. I am a postpartum doula. So I have done work just that you would expect of people in those roles and put it into the Nestle bank account because, we need to pay a Canva bill or something like that. So it's very much, I wouldn't say day by day, but like month by month, we are cognizant of keeping as lean a business as we possibly can and always thinking on the horizon, okay, how are we going to make this something that we actually can quit these side jobs and focus on full time?
Yeah, that is, I mean, super interesting. But I agree with you. If it's an underserved community, like it should be cheaper or at no cost to them. So it's a very interesting world startup culture is to figure out how can you solve a problem, but who is going to pay for it. And also you need someone like yourself and your co-founder that are in the thick of it that actually know what the solution and problem set are. And so it is just so I work for a startup, and it is just it amazes me how businesses start and succeed and grow and thrive. Like the amount of work and all the puzzle pieces that have to get put together, it's incredible. I don't know. I
Mm-hmm.
feel you on the challenges that you're going through. And so I I hope that, we can help get the word out about Nestle at least.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so much about running a startup is being nimble. And I think originally we thought that parents would pay for this, but the truth is what we are displacing is Google and asking friends, and both of which are free. And so I think cognitively, like, that's too much of a leap for parents to pay for sort of a concierge service of recommendation generation. So, but who could pay for it is these companies, these experts. They have a marketing budget for the most part. Like, their business thrives when they get it in front of people. And so that is what we are leaning into now. The natural side that is able to pay for it is the side that is used to paying for what we're offering. So yeah, I'm hopeful.
Awesome. Well, me too. Me too for you guys. So how long has Nestle been at it now?
So I started, Nestle started just as me, as a doula and lactation counselor in 2019. And then I partnered with Michelle and we built the platform in 2022. So it's been about 2 years, almost 2 years of the platform being live.
And throw a global pandemic in there too.
Yeah. Yeah. And a second child
Yeah,
for,
and a
for both
second
of us.
child. Okay. And so, how do you feel like, what I'm getting at is, how do you feel like your motherhood journey has evolved over those 4 or 5 years?
I am really thankful to have been in a position where I'm naming my own hours during the years of the pandemic and during the years of my children being really young. And I think flexibility, as you said earlier, is the number one thing that enables working parents to feel like they are successful both at work and at parenting. And so, although it's been stressful worrying about where the money is going to come from and worrying about, how changes in society on the heels of, pandemic changes could impact a business and has impacted, the startup scene in terms of funding and how a lot of like potential funding sources have dried up. I mean, it's been a roller coaster, but I think that it has been the adventure that I wanted it to be. And it's also been paired with some really exciting years of my kids being little. And I appreciate being the one in the decision making chair because I don't have to ask anybody for PTO, or I don't have to, hope that I don't get seen when I slip out and go to my godson, being Rafiki in The Lion King at his school play. Like, I think that it is every parent's right. And this is what helps us feel like we are able to be good parents when we're able to be there. And we shouldn't have to apologize or find ways around a system that doesn't support us doing that. I think that my hope for the company that I'm building and for the companies that are being built today alongside huge companies is that they will be mindful of the flexibility that parents need.
That was really, really well said, and I couldn't agree more. And really appreciate, you sharing your perspective. And it has just been a delight to hear the passion and the true agency that you have taken with your life and your journey into motherhood. So thank you, Carly, so much for joining us, and thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your journey.
Thank you so much. Yes, I really appreciate it.
If you are currently expecting or just looking to plan ahead, check out perkyleave.com to learn more about your leave benefits.
Moms with Benefits is chasing financial and emotional stability for motherhood. If you've resonated with any of the stories from our moms, we'd love for you to give us a rating and quick review to help spread the word. You'll also find Moms with Benefits on Instagram at momswithbenefits.org. Keep going and keep growing, Mama.